Hey everyone, Chris here. I wanted to say first off that I am an idiot. I have not been doing the show, as you have heard, for the past few weeks because I've had some school and family obligations that took me out of it. So first off, I want to say thank you to Sarah for filling in. She's been a great addition. She's on this episode. I think you're going to really like it as well. So thank you, Sarah, for doing that. You've been a great addition, and I've enjoyed listening to your banter. However, like I said, I'm an idiot. I posted the last 2 episodes and went about my business, totally forgetting there was a 3rd episode that Matt had sent me. So, that's what you're hearing today. It's my favorite episode for the month of November. You're getting it in December because, again, I spaced on it. But all the recommendations, you can still find most of these things. So I hope you still enjoy it. Hope you still take it to heart. I am hoping to be back with the show in January, and we'll be kind of back to our normal schedule. I'm hoping we can get Sarah to join us for a few conversations as well, so we can continue to have her a part of the team as well. I wanted to also say thank you as we near the end of 2019. Thank you for listening to this show. Thank you for contributing. Thank you for being a part of it. If you haven't followed us on Facebook, please do so. You can click the link in the show notes. That's a great way to join the conversation. Tell us what you like, what you disagree with, what you want us to talk about. So please follow us on Facebook. Be part of that. Also, if you like the show, please give us a rating on iTunes. It is a great way to help us get up in the rankings and attract more listeners and continue this conversation. Again, one last time, thank you so much for listening to the show this year. I think 2020 is going to be an even better year for this show. Now here are Beth, Matt, and Sarah talking about their favorites for the month of November in December.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. I'm Swanson, host of the TV Tuners podcast. Every week on TV Tuners, me and my co-hosts, Keo Rain,
Swanson, I need water,
and Stairmaster, review the latest in TV, discuss news, trailers, and even find time to play some fun games. Right now, we're working overtime to cram as much TV knowledge into our brains as possible. Isn't that right, guys?
Swanson, we've been here for 24 hours. We need to get out of here.
Not until you answer who Norm is.
He's Fraser's brother.
Wrong. You get the shock. Check out TV Tunes, available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or any of the podcatchers of your choice.
This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wasting Time with Beth, Chris, and Matt, the podcast about pop culture, life, and our favorite things. My name is Matt December, and with me are
Beth Wolpe
and
Sarah Clinton.
Hey!
What?
So that's not Chris.
Wait, where's Chris?
Chris couldn't be here with us today.
That sounds terrible. Like you.
No, he's fine. He's fine. He's just really busy. He's really busy.
So Chris is taking a brief hiatus, approximately 3 or 4 episode hiatus, but he will be back.
Yeah.
Don't unsubscribe.
Yes.
Our smartest and most handsome co-host will return.
He'll be back. So in his place is the lovely Sarah Clinton.
Oh, we are so lucky to have her.
I feel like I'm your smartest and most handsome listener.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Sarah is our most dedicated listener, maybe our only listener. So all of this could really just be directed back at you, Sarah.
Yeah, so are you going to listen to your own episodes is the question.
I promise I will be the first
To
listener.
listen. Ah, perfect. That's exactly what
I
we
love
want.
it.
Yeah. Sarah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Sarah. I date Matt, and I am friends with Beth. And
Ooh.
I love a lot of things, so I can't wait to talk about all the stuff I'm loving very lately.
Oh.
With 2 of my favorite peeps.
Oh, perfect.
That's
Well,
perfect.
the listeners are so lucky to have you.
Yes, we're all lucky to have you. So, yeah, we're doing a, I don't know, what are we calling this? What we're
Well,
loving
it's our
lately?
favorites episode.
It's our favorite episode.
Yeah, our favorites. What are
So-
we loving lately? What's our favorite?
Yeah, so I'll start us off with what I've been loving lately. It's the This is actually a podcast. I don't usually talk about podcasts, but because I don't.
I would
listen
say
to...
you've never talked about a podcast before.
Yeah, that's probably true. But I really enjoy it because I like the guy who does it. It is the podcast hosted by Justin Long called Life is Short with Justin Long. And it's a podcast that he hosts. And his brother Christian is also involved. He kind of is at the beginning and the end to kind of set the episode up and then kind of recap the episode. I think they have a term at the end for what they call that.
So that just happened.
Yeah, so that just happened. And so the episode is really, the show is really Justin talking with various people. It's a lot of, I mean, at this point it's all celebrities. It's like all of his celebrity friends about what makes them tick, what makes them happy, and you know, the whole concept being life is short, and so like what do you do to, you know, enjoy your life, that sort of thing. And so there have been probably less than 20 episodes.
Oh, really? So it's new.
Yeah, he started. They started back in this summer, maybe at the end of the spring. I want to say the first episode, was at the beginning of the summer, and it was actually kind of hosted by someone else. It was Dax Shepard, and so the first episode is a really good episode where Dax Shepard interviews him kind of as a way to get introduced to Justin Long. And Dax Shepard has his own podcast, which is really popular, I believe. The first episode came out May 13th of this year, and that was the Dax Shepard one.
I feel like his is like Armchair something.
Armchair expert.
Yes,
Expert, yeah.
and it is wildly popular.
Yes.
As is Dax Shepard as a human. He really rocketed into famedom with his relationship and his success on Parenthood.
They kind of touch on that in the podcast. Obviously he's currently married to Kristen
Bell.
But before he was in a relationship with
what is her name? Kate Holmes?
Kate Hudson.
Kate Hudson.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
So that they talk about, that was kind of his first big taste of fame.
Yeah, because he was
Oh,
famous.
that's funny.
Yeah, because his celebrity kind of started prior to his relationship with Kristen Bell. It just it feels like, at least to me, I kind of didn't realize who he was until he was with Kristen Bell for some reason. But he had made some movie with Seth Green, and he was in something else, and he was in Punk'd, maybe, or not, was that show?
Yeah,
Punk'd,
he
I think
was.
he was on Punk'd.
Was it
He was
Punk'd?
the B team for Punk'd.
Punk'd, yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, so that's just the first episode, and it's very good. It's very funny. Though I think the thing about the show that I like, because I don't really like a ton of podcasts, is that Justin Long is incredibly likable. He's a great audience. He laughs a ton. He laughs at everything.
I do really like that.
And he has a really, really great laugh, I think. Sarah's listened to probably as many episodes as I have. Do you don't like his laugh?
No, well, he does have a very good laugh, but that's what I like about this podcast is you both have really great laughs. Maybe you should listen to your own podcast.
I don't. No, thank you. I don't.
I do love when people laugh at their own humor, laugh at their own jokes or laugh at their own conversations. It makes me so happy. I love listening to it.
Yeah.
I gotta admit that when you mentioned this was your favorite, I was kind of eye roll because I'm I just don't get his appeal.
Justin Long?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she's so
great. And I
great.
just Googled him and I'm looking at pictures. I'm I just was never oh, the guy from Dodgeball, I love him. But if you say so, I will definitely give it a listen.
So some of
I love listening to celebrities talk about their celebrity lives.
Yeah, I mean, and that's most of every episode. And like I said, a lot of these people are people he is friends with proper or kind of fringe friends, a couple times removed,
Or had worked
or
with.
worked with maybe on occasion. So there's I'm just going to give you a list of some of the people who've been on the show. Olivia Wilde, Sam Rockwell. He's really good friends with Sam Rockwell
that's
from
crazy.
working on Galaxy Quest. Wolfgang Puck. I don't know if he knows.
That's bizarre.
Wolfgang
That's
Puck.
funny.
Let's see.
So
Jeremy
it's part of
Renner.
his hook, that he knows weird people. Like,
No,
or that he knows
I
a
wouldn't-
variety of people?
I would say that that's not really the hook. It just happens to be he's just been around long
Because
enough.
that's an eclectic group of
It is.
guests.
And I like I said, I don't know that that's the hook at all. At least not that I've really gotten the sense. Like, it's just he just so happens to like, oh, we kind of knew each other through this, and a lot of these that I listen to.
Before this is too far in the weeds to be relevant, did I ever tell the story about how I saw Dax Shepard at a Coney Island?
To me, yes, I've heard this story.
Well, I don't know if our audience has listened to it.
I have not.
It's a short story, which is that I did see Dax Shepard at a Coney Island.
Who was he there with?
He was there with just a big group of friends. Like, they were at a big circular table. So it was in Royal Oak in about 2008. So he was famous, but not like as famous as he is now. Obviously, that was more than 10 years ago. 2009 maybe. But he was like laughing the whole time, and he towered over everyone. He is enormously tall. It's like really startling, like in person. And he had a ponytail. He had extremely long hair. He had to pull back in a ponytail.
Really? Ponytail? I don't
And
remember that look at all.
when I went up to go, of course, like, a total pleb.
You didn't go up to him, did you?
I tried to, and the staff at Coney Island stopped me.
Good.
They were
Good.
like, just let him enjoy his breakfast. Like, they
Good.
were super aggressive with me. Like, they were like, back, like, with their arms, like, because me and my sister were like, we're going to go say it. The whole time we're eating breakfast, we're like, should we go? We're going to
Oh
go.
my
Should we go?
gosh.
We're going to go.
I would have been mortified if you had tried that when I was there. Oh.
Anyway, so we didn't get to talk to him, but I did see him in person.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, isn't he? I know we're talking about Dax Shepard and not Justin.
Yeah, let's talk about Justin Long.
Sorry, he is from the Detroit area.
I think Kristen Bell is too.
She
right?
is
Yes,
as
they're
well,
both,
yes.
they're both from.
So maybe that was like his home squad, at
Yeah.
the Coney Island. They were like, listen, we gotta let him keep coming here. We can't let anybody bother him.
Right,
That's
right.
possible.
And it gave the manager of that Coney Island something to do too. So like everyone was happy.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, standing room only.
Right,
Here's
right.
Coney Island.
I'm just going to name off a few more people who he did episodes with.
Sure.
Tony Hale.
Aw.
That was a good episode. Tony Hale's also incredibly likable. Donald Faison, who was Turk in Scrubs, did an episode. And that was a great episode because he's, again, also incredibly likable. And they had a very, fun... They had worked together on a play, and so that was, kind of their connection, and they were both very likable. Then he did an episode with Jonah Hill, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and then the most recent one was with Judy Greer. So I've listened to maybe half a dozen, and some are better than others. I think what I found is when he's working with people who have a comedy background, they're it just makes for a better episode because there's a lot of improvisation,
Sure.
Anyway, it's very funny. He's a very funny guy, very likable. I like it a lot. I think it's worth a listen. You like it too, don't you, Sarah?
I do like it a lot. And actually, I listened to the Neil deGrasse Tyson episode recently, and I was kind of nervous going into it because I listen to a ton of podcasts, and I listened to Neil deGrasse Tyson's podcast, in which he can be kind of like a bully because he's talking about astrophysics, he's an astrophysicist, so I feel like he kind of dominates the conversation, but just weirdly, the mix of him and Justin Long in this conversation is adorable.
Now I'm
and
completely intrigued.
You gotta listen, Beth.
All right. He has a ageless face. He's 41 years old, which
Yeah.
I would not have guessed.
Yeah.
I would thought he was younger than me.
And I think that's kind of the impetus for the podcast. He's exploring the idea that life is short, and how are people dealing with that fact?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Also,
That's-
very witty podcast title. I love a nice and punny podcast title.
Yeah,
So.
I think they talk about that too.
Awesome.
So before we skip off to anyone else, I did want to mention that because I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts, I also did listen to the first episode of Office Ladies with Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey.
Ooh, it's on the Earwolf Network.
That's an
I love
Earwolf podcast, and so it's those two who Jenna Fisher played Pam Drescher,
Beasley?
Pam Beasley.
Fran Drescher.
Pam Beasley, and Angela played Angela something or other.
Schrute.
Angela
Yeah,
Schrute,
right.
sure. On the American version of The Office. They were best friends in real life. They became best friends on the show, and then so what they've started was a podcast where each week they will watch in order an episode of The Office and then talk about the episode, and then a lot of it's just them giving exclusive behind the scenes stories that obviously you would only know if you were on the cast or in the crew. So I listened to one episode, which was them talking about the pilot and kind of how they got cast and the whole process for that. And if you like The Office at all, it's certainly worth a listen. Like you can tell that they're very new at podcasting, so it's not nearly as professional as this one.
Sure.
But they're kind of figuring out, and they're both very likable people, so that makes it easier. And I'm trying to think. I mean, nothing they said was like super like groundbreaking to me, but I think it's like interesting. It's like interesting stuff to listen to because it's a show I liked a lot when it was on, and so I'm curious. If it lasts long enough, I'm curious to hear them talk about the show when it starts to get really bad and what they think about that. So I'm sure they're not going to trash anybody, but it's a lot easier to be excited about a show when it's like in like Emmy Award territory as opposed to when people are like, oh, has this been canceled yet? So we'll see.
Yeah, especially when your storyline, Pam, is the one that is just the most sort of like noxious at the end. And like, yeah.
Well, hopefully by the time they get to those episodes, they'll be so comfortable in their podcast, they'll be just dishing like nobody's business.
Yes.
They'll be like real like pod lofting, wine, fuzzy socks.
Was
really
like
dishing.
The entire show like written by the cast, or did they have like other writers too? Like I know.
No, there were writers, and I mean some of the cast also were writers.
Like Mindy Kaling and BJ Novak both wrote on it.
Writers, yeah, but they did talk about, and this is kind of stuff that's interesting as far as behind the scenes things go. They did talk about how that there was a lot of instances during the course of the show where the director or one of the writers, whoever was like working on that particular episode, would say, they would go to a cast member and be like, how do you think they would handle this? Or give us a monologue about XYZ subject and we'll see if it works, So they really gave the actors a lot of like control of their own character. And then in this episode, they specifically talked about that happening in this pilot episode with Michael Scott. They said, "Oh, do a monologue on who Michael Scott's heroes would be," and it's like I can't even tell you. It's just like a dumb list, and then like the last person on the list is like he's like and God, I guess maybe something like that. Yeah. And so anyway, so they did actually talk about that, and so yeah, they were pretty like actively involved in creating their own characters. And actually, there was more stories in that vein. Like one of Jenna or Angela had written something about having a cat party, and it's like actually then a line that's used in the show, like kind of as an off thing. And then that kind of they were talking about how that kind of spiraled into her character then being a crazy cat lady.
Yeah,
like,
obsessed.
So So anyway, it's interesting. If you like The Office, that's worth listening to, I think, or at least. It's worth listening to for certain episodes, or at least the good episodes. Anyway, so 2 podcasts for me.
Wow.
Well, I'm going to give that a listen, and I'm going to skip all the episodes about the episodes that I also skip, like Scott's Tots.
No, you gotta listen to Scott's Tots.
Oh, skip that one every time.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a brutal one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. All right, Beth, you want to go next?
Sure.
Can you get my iced tea?
Oh, sure. Here we go. Passing the tea.
Thank you.
I read a book this month, and I should say 2 things. First, I listened to it and did not read it.
It counts.
But it does count. And I especially chose to listen to it because it is narrated by Bradley Whitford, who I just really love. And I rewatched all of West Wing when I was on maternity leave with Grayson, and it still feels really fresh in my mind. And it was like such a fragile time in my life that it just like really imprinted on me, and I just am like obsessed with him and other characters in this show. But
everyone loves Josh Lyman.
Yeah, he's great. And I love Cabin in the Woods. Like, I thought he was so great in that, which is probably the last thing I saw him in. But I'm choosing not to watch that show that I just saw he was on network television.
Or whatever.
Yeah, which looks just like not great.
A unicorn.
No, it's like an a cappella singing group.
Yeah, it's called like Saved or Blessed or
something.
I'm thinking of somebody else.
In any case, that is neither here nor there.
I was like, are you thinking of Patton Oswalt?
No, that's not what I'm thinking of either.
Let's clarify a few things. Patton Oswalt is not Bradley Whitford.
Wait, that's the same guy, right?
No.
He did the voice from Ratatouille or whatever.
No, his voice is dreamy. But is the second thing I wanted to note is that I do have a little bit left in the book, so I'm not going to spoil the end. But we are sort of living in the end of the book, which is also we can talk about. But it's Adi Barkan's Eyes to the Wind. Adi Barkan is a young, an inspiring activist who is diagnosed with ALS a few years ago and is using the remaining years of his life to commit to social justice and try to secure health care for millions of people before he leaves this mortal plane. And his sort of commitment to activism despite his disease, I have always found really inspiring. I watched his healthcare series, and he's a regular guest on another podcast that I really like, which is Pod Save America. And it seems like him and Jon Favreau have a really sweet relationship. I've always found him kind of fascinating in that someone would choose to live the final years of their life while they have a young, I think he has a 2-year-old son right now, and a wife and a newborn. And they just like travel around the country. But when I was listening to him plug this book, he was talking about how he wanted to sort of record his legacy, write his memoir for his kids to remember him, because they certainly won't remember him on their own. And I was like, oh, I just know I have to read this. And I didn't know that he was sort of a very accomplished lawyer and activist before he was diagnosed with ALS, primarily focusing on working with the Federal Reserve and sort of giving the power of the Fed back to the people. And then as his disease progressed, he switches his focus to healthcare. Mostly, I feel like it sort of all sort of turns, Sarah, maybe like you can, if you agree or not, like when he recounts his interaction with Jeff Flake on the airplane, and it definitely like skyrockets him into sort of the activist spotlight.
Absolutely. I think in that part of the book, he even talks about he'd never heard the word kismet before, but somebody said, oh, it's kismet that you're on this plane, with Jeff Flake, and you have this opportunity to talk to him. And he was Googling, what is kismet? Destiny, yes. And he said, what I enjoyed about this book is he is not like super saccharine about, this is my purpose in life, this is why I have ALS, like, oh, I'm so blessed by this disease, because he's, he waffles between, this is brutal, this is terrible, I cry every day thinking about leaving my family behind, but also, okay, what has ALS taken away from me? Shortened my life by decades, maybe half a century, and it's taken away the time that I have with my family. But what it's given me is, as I'm losing my voice, I'm gaining my voice. More people are hearing what I have to say, and I can deliver a more powerful message now because of what has happened to me and the platform that I choose to use it for.
Yeah, even when he talks about taking his family on the road with him, it's like not a stunt, but he basically admits, like, yeah, it's because it's more powerful for people to see my family with me and to see the way that I have to live, and like, he is an excellent writer, especially for it being like his first book. I mean, it sounds like he has done a ton of writing in his like careers.
And but he had to write this letter by letter with his eyes.
Yeah.
He is wheelchair bound. He's paralyzed from the neck down. I think at this point he either just had a feeding tube or ventilator, like tracheotomy, installed. So he is on the decline, and he has not given up. I mean, he's not stopping his fight to use his remaining time with his family or be selfish. I mean, he's really using the momentum that he has.
He is still like doing his work. He's bitching that like Joe Biden won't do an interview with him. He's like interviewed all the other Democratic nominees on their healthcare policies specifically. And he's just a super, I mean, it sounds trite to say he's inspiring, because of course he's inspiring, but I just can't imagine the sort of person or will that it would take to persevere in the way that he has. And even if you follow him like on Twitter, he'll be like, I'm in this city. I need a physical therapist. Like, can anyone help me because he's in so much pain? Like that, his legs are seizing and he's in pain. And like, people volunteer to go to his hotel and like, help him. And it's just, I find myself listening to it being like, it's super sad and I cry, or it's super inspiring. And I just think that it's a good reminder of the human spirit. And I find that as I start to get really overwhelmed in sort of the mundane parts of my day, or I feel myself complaining about my kids or my weight or literally anything, that I really am so fortunate, and people like Adi can just squeeze every ounce of like purpose out of their life, and it's just really inspiring.
Yeah, and another thing that I liked about reading this book and learning more about him, because I was introduced to him by the Pot Save America guys, was listening to his whole story and kind of getting the idea that the person that he is now is the person that he's always been. I mean, since he was a college student, he was fighting, with at Yale, he was fighting for them to deprivatize the scientific work that was done by professors and students on campus so that drugs for AIDS could be brought down to a reasonable level. So basically, the patent for a very specific drug used to treat AIDS was held by Yale, and he and some other student activists were able to convince the board of directors of the school to not pursue their patent in a certain area of the world so that they could provide these drugs to people who actually needed them. So, I mean, and that was when he was in his 20s, and I just think about what I was doing in my 20s, and I was not doing anything that had any kind of significant impact on the world. And so the idea that he's now, 35, facing months, maybe years to live, and he's still fighting for people, not only himself, but for other people, it is very inspiring. Yeah. And I think it is just a good reminder that, the power of one person is still a pretty good power.
Yes. And, the human spirit is remarkable. So.
Does he have a robot voice or whatever?
Yes.
He does now.
Now he does.
So he sounds like Stephen Hawking?
Yep.
Yeah. Maybe he inherited him.
It's a little better than Stephen Hawking's robot voice, I think, but...
Do like an impression of it.
I will not. All right, Eyes to the Wind. I got mine on Audible, but you can get it at Barnes & Noble, Target, and Amazon. I also was like, I should buy 5 copies of these because it's, he even says in one interview I heard that, his family needs to, he's trying to support his kids while he still can, by making money where he can. So, that's it.
Well, that sounds very good.
It is very good.
And it's a good listen, like Beth said. I have become a big fan of Audible, and probably the last dozen books I've read have been recorded books.
Oh, good.
And it is a good listen. Bradley Whitford, he's great. I mean, he's an amazing actor, but he really, I don't know, I think he kind of, disappears in this. You forget that it's Bradley Whitford, which he doesn't try to do goofy voices or anything. Almost the tone of his voice is kind of, slightly exhausted.
Yes.
But,
I feel like he just embodies Adi Barkan's, exhaustion and just, his sadness so well. You're right. You totally forget it's him. And at the very beginning, I mean, it was, within the first hour, at one point, Bradley Whitford, his voice cracks. He's starting to cry.
Really?
Reading it's the foreword.
Oh.
And it's so, heartbreaking. But he is really
Whitford.
super talented.
Oh,
so. Sarah, what do you have for us?
Well, I'm going to take us in a completely different direction. This is a real feel-good fall escape. So I actually have 2. What I'm going to start talking about is The Great British Bake Off, because this is the first season that I've watched episode to episode, because I'm watching it on Netflix, but they're only releasing 1 episode a week on Fridays.
How exciting is that?
It is, because then you get the whole week to talk with your sisters and text with your mom and get on Reddit and see who everybody is rooting for and what bakes they wish they could try and what bakes they might might be attempting on their own. So the current season, I think it's season 10, but I think it's only for American viewers the 7th cycle that is available. I think 7 are available on Netflix. If anybody has, I don't know, access to some BBC content, they could perhaps get the first couple seasons that weren't available to American audiences. But if you're not familiar with the Great British Bake Off, it is ostensibly good home bakers who come to this tent in, the outskirts of London every week for, I think, 7 weeks, every weekend for 7 weeks, and they have to bring a signature bake, which is a bake that they can practice before they come that fits the brief. So they might say, we want a chocolate cake, or we want scones, or whatever. And then the next challenge is what they call a technical challenge, which is they are giving a very bare recipe and asked to produce one of the two judges' favorite bakes. So that might be bread if you're Paul Hollywood, because he's the big bread guy, or it might be a princess tort if you are Prue, who's the new female judge. And then the third challenge is their showstopper, which is supposed to be, this big, great, maybe they want a cake that's 3 meters high or whatever it is. And the thing that I really like about the Great British Bake Off is that it's just a very friendly show. All the contestants are rooting for each other. Nobody says bad words. In addition to the two judges, they have 2 hosts. And it used to be these 2 ladies, like a comedic duo, Sue and Mel. Now they have a man named Noel, and I forget the other lady's name, but she's hilarious. And the 2 of them just kind of go around and interact with the contestants and calm them down if they've dropped their bake or if their sugar is burned. And it's just very calming and friendly. And even in like the high intense moments, the bakers eventually come to the realization like, oh, this is a cake. This is a weekend. I want to be star baker, but I put sugar on I put salt on my tins instead of sugar, and so now my sponges taste like bagels. So it's just a good escape. I love the Great British Bake Off. I have it on the way that some people watch The Office or Parks and Rec. It's just on in the background all the time. Something about the introduction music just is very calming, and I know Netflix allows you to maybe skip the intro, and I just sit there thinking, who would ever skip this intro? Adorable, somebody putting raspberries very lovingly on a cake, and it is just the cure to the I wish winter would never get here blues.
Well, it sounds lovely. It is what you're saying is like the vibe that I get from everyone I've heard talk about it. I know it's super popular, but that is just a really wholesome, feel good, like put it on the way I put on like Law and Order, because I just like I'm like it's predictable.
It's
I know
exactly like Law and
yeah,
Order.
I know right. Like I know exactly how it's gonna make me feel, and I did watch one episode and I loved it. The showstopper was Yule logs, and it was these like insane Yule logs with like like the size of real logs. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And it was just I can totally see how it would be a real just like warm sweater to put on and just sit on the couch, just like I love it. Get a glass of wine and forget that the world is on fire, like literally.
Exactly. I mean, you almost can forget you're even in America because you're listening to all these British accents, and maybe there's a Scottish, maybe there's an Irish accent, maybe there's like North and South of England accents. It is very calming, and this, as of today, the day that we are recording, was the last episode was released on Netflix of the current season, and I've only watched half of it, so I don't even know who won. I know who the final 3 bakers are, but I am very excited.
No spoilers.
I can't spoil myself or anyone else because I do not know who wins. I know who I hope will win.
Oh.
But I'm going to write that on a little piece of paper.
Yes, do that. Leave it here.
In a locked box.
We'll check.
See if they won. So that is my real what I'm loving lately. But I have a B.
Okay, I'm ready.
Secondary. And this is a book called The Power by Naomi Alderman. I listened to this book, And I actually feel like this is one of the rare books that might have been better as a read because it's kind of told as a history, kind of like The Handmaid's Tale, where the idea is that these are all relics or first-hand accounts of a alternate or perhaps near future where women, starting with girls, become born with this extra organ or muscle on their collarbones that allows them to generate an electric power. They can use it to hurt people, and men and boys don't have it. Young girls can awaken the power in older women. So these young girls are having this power. They're getting into these fights at school, and there's a big uproar. We need to separate the girls from the boys because the girls are just hurting all the boys, and it's a really,
typical.
It's a really interesting. Look into an alternate world where rather than being the weaker sex, women are the stronger sex, and how that flipping of the dynamic would work in like a modern setting. So I don't know about you guys. When I was a kid, I always dreamed that I would have telekinetic powers or you get some human power, and just the idea
still waiting,
I am still waiting. I wish I had this. It's called a skein, the muscle that they develop. And just the idea that there was just some latent power in you that could be used to protect yourself or somebody else, or could be used to perhaps encourage a segment of the population to respect the humanity. The other half.
It's fine. Everyone's fine. Come on.
Okay, real talk though. Does anyone still try to turn off lights or with their eyes or their hands? Stare at it. Do you ever do that on your own? I
mostly just try to call the remote control into my hand.
Into your hand?
I'm come on, let's go right here.
I'm always trying to turn off the light because I don't want to get out of my bed. So I'm
that's a good one to practice.
And I say okay, I won't be scared.
Why would that change? Why would that make any difference?
I'll accept this power with grace.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Yes, I just tell it I won't freak out. I'm not gonna tell anyone. I'm just gonna use my powers to make myself more lazy. Please just let me turn off this light. It never works. But what was the name of it again? I'm sorry, I missed it.
It's called The Power by Naomi Alderman. And just as a plug, in 2017, Barack Obama named The Power as one of his favorite books of 2017.
Oh, that's
he
a
didn't
great
read that.
plug. He did so. What else is he doing?
Whatever. He loves strong women.
Yep. This is true.
As evidenced by his entire life.
I love The Wreck, and I will definitely read it with my eyes.
The what?
I'll read it with my eyes. I'm saying because you don't like when I listen to books.
Oh,
I'm saying I'll read it.
Okay, you said you love The Wreck.
Yeah, well, the recommendation.
Oh, I was that's not the name of the book.
No.
Okay, all right.
Thanks for The Wreck, The Power.
Okay, all right, that's fair. All right, well, that sounds good. Everyone should read The Power or something else.
Maybe you.
I'm not going to. Give me one story.
Give me
one similar story starring a male character, and then I'll read it. Give me a book that I can read that's for me and a man.
So. I'm buying Matt 5 books for Christmas, 3 copies of The Power, and 2 copies of Eyes to the Wind.
Give me a break. All right, is that it?
That is it.
Well, thanks so much for listening to our show, which is called Wasting Time with Beth, Chris, and Matt.
Okay, so you can find us all at, Matt, where can people find you?
Twitter at Matt December.
Oh, sure. You can find me at unicornfood.com. That's YOUNICORN food.com. Yep. Sarah, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Saratoga Jean. That's Sarah with no H, TOJEAN.
Okay.
That's just the name. I picked it when I was 17.
That's cute.
And then
what?
Yeah, I think that's it. You can find, where to find Chris.
Chris is all over the place.
If Chris wanted to be plugged, he would be here, wouldn't he?
That's true.
Well, no, Chris, we love you. Come back soon.
Yeah.
Okay, but not too soon.
Yeah.
And
that's it.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah, and if you listen to the show on iTunes, like it or something.
Give us ratings and reviews because it helps us a lot in iTunes. It's all about those reviews. Use your words and say how much you like us. It helps.
Or emojis. That works too.
We love emojis.
Aww.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much for listening.
Bye.
Bye.